I never dreamed my marriage would crumble in the middle of a pricey restaurant, but there I was, sitting in La BMEZ, drenched in crimson wine. My wife's furious look scorched into me as gasps filled the room. The harsh aroma of alcohol clung to my skin, pouring into my shirt, yet the frigid shame pierced deeper than the chill of the drink. The waiter, frozen mid-step, gawked at the scene, his silver tray quivering in his hands. Other diners, guys in fitted jackets, women covered, with beautiful jewelry, muttered behind manicured palms. Their wide eyes flew between Lauren, her mother Margaret, and me, the man naive enough to assume today was just another costly dinner. It was never about the meal. It was about control. Margaret reclined back in her chair, wine glass still carefully, pressed between her fingers, amusement dancing in her eyes as if she had arranged the entire incident. Maybe she had. Lauren had always been her puppet, conditioned to believe that a spouse existed only to supply, to cater, to fund. And I? Well, I had spent 5 years playing the role wonderfully. Until now. The bill arrived, beautifully folded in a leather case, and when the waiter laid it down between us, I already knew what was coming. Lauren didn't even glance at it. She never did. She simply shoved it toward me, her silent instruction obvious. But tonight, something inside me moved. The weight of every drained account, every maxed-out credit card, every weekend trip to Paris just because sat on my shoulders. And I felt it, the unbearable truth. I had erected a gilded cage for her, and she had voluntarily locked me inside. I laid my drink down carefully, wiped my mouth with a tissue, and whispered the words that broke everything. "I'm not paying for this." Lauren's fork clattered onto her plate. Margaret's eyebrow arched. "Sorry." "What?" Lauren's voice was sharp, her smile faltering for the first time all evening. I met her gaze evenly. "I didn't order half of this. I had a steak. You and your mother had lobster, caviar, and 4 bottles of wine. If you want to live like royalty, you can start paying like it." A long hush spread over the table, thick with astonishment. Lauren's lips parted, then twisted. Her manicured nails drummed against the glass stem as her face contorted in fury. And then, in one rapid move, she grabbed her wine glass and threw it in my face. The world blurred red. The cold liquid soaked through my shirt, trickling down my jaw. But the shock lasted only a second before I heard it. Margaret's laughter. Not a gasp. Not a scolding. Laughter. The final piece of the picture slipped into focus. This was never simply about money. It was about humiliation, dominance, the expectation that no matter how terribly they treated me, I would stay. Not tonight. I reached up, wiped the alcohol from my face, and stood. My chair scraped against the shiny floor, the sound slashing through the shocked silence. Lauren's breath hitched. "Sit down," she ordered, her voice shaking. "Pay the amount, or this stops here." Something inside me snapped. I wasn't just done with this dinner. I was done with her. I leveled my stare at her, my voice steady. "You're correct. This ends here." Margaret's sneer faltered. Lauren's eyes widened in disbelief. I pulled out my wallet. But instead of going for a card, I picked a crisp $100 bill and dropped it on the table. That should cover my steak and the tip. Then I turned and walked away. Lauren sputtered behind me, crying my name, but I didn't look back. Not when the waiter shouted after me. Not when Margaret hissed under her breath. For the first time in years, I didn't care. As I strode past the stunned faces of the restaurant goers, I felt it, the weight lifting, the crushing hold of obligation unwinding. I approached the entrance, my hand brushing the glass door. But before I pushed it open, I did something Lauren never imagined. I took out my phone, put on the camera, and recorded. I turned back, locking eyes with her across the diner. "Go forward." "Lauren," I said, my voice calm but unyielding, Explain to everyone why you think throwing wine at your husband is appropriate when he won't pay for your mother's lavish dinner. A ripple of whispered murmurs circulated through the restaurant. The phone in my palm caught every moment. Her astonished look, Margaret's stiff posture, the way Lauren's flawlessly crafted facade began to fracture. She had always counted on my silence. But tonight, I had found my voice. Lauren's jaw clenched. Her hands curled into fists. Margaret's smirk was gone. For the first time since I met her, she seemed uneasy. I didn't wait for a reaction. I finished the recording, placed my phone back into my pocket, and pushed open the doors. The chilly, night air touched my damp clothing, sending a shiver through me. But I didn't stop. I kept walking. Behind me, the doors slid shut. And with them, I shut the door on everything else. I kept walking, the city's night air wrapping around me, sharp and cold, but nothing compared to the chill that had sunk inside me. My shirt was still saturated with alcohol, clinging uncomfortably to my skin, but I barely noticed. I was too preoccupied, listening to my own footsteps, steady and deliberate, reverberating on the pavement to the beating of my own heart, racing with something unknown, freedom. "I want my money back, every last cent," she scoffed. "That's not going to happen," I grinned. "Oh, I think it will." Lauren narrowed her eyes. "And if I refuse?" I moved in slightly. "Then I'll do exactly what you and your mother never imagined." She swallowed hard. "And what's that?" I took out my phone again and selected my recent recording, the one from last night at the restaurant. The moment she splashed wine in my face. The moment Margaret laughed, relishing my humiliation. I pressed play. The room was overwhelmed with the sound of Lauren's voice, her entitled demand booming through the kitchen. "Pay the bill, or this ends here." Then, the gasps from the other diners. The sound of chairs sliding against the floor as people turned to observe the spectacle. The unmistakable chuckle of her mother, Lauren's face drained of color. "What are you doing?" she whispered. I smirked. "I'm taking control," I clicked. On another file, the financial papers I had compiled, then another, images of our text chats, proof of her threats, her demands, her manipulation. Lauren paled. "You wouldn't," she said, but I heard the wobble in her voice. "Wouldn't I?" I countered. "You see, Lauren, I've played the fool for years, but now I'm done. And if you don't return my money, I'll take this public. Your social circle, your reputation, gone." Her breath caught. "And that's just the beginning," I continued. "Because if I take this to the cops, if I tell them my wife has been stealing and laundering money through secret accounts..." Lauren trembled. I nodded, delighted. "Yeah, I thought so." She swallowed hard, her nails digging into her palms. "You're threatening me?" "No," I replied, smiling coldly. "I'm offering you a choice." Her lips trembled. She realized she had lost. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Simple," I said. "Send every stolen dollar back into my account. I'll be following the transactions. The instant I realize it's all there, I'll walk away." Lauren was shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. "And if I don't?" I cocked my head. "Then you lose everything." For the first time, Lauren had no retort. No funny remark. No deceptive justification. Just quiet. I moved away from the counter and grabbed my jacket. "You have 24 hours. Her head snapped up. 24 hours for what? I didn't even turn around. "To rectify your error," I stated simply, "or I'll fix it for you." Then, without another word, I walked out. I didn't need to look back to know Lauren was afraid. And she damn well should be. Because for the first time in our marriage, she wasn't calling the shots. I was. The moment I stepped outside, I felt it. The shift. The balance of power had tipped. And for the first time, Lauren wasn't the one in charge. The air was crisp, but my body burned with a heat that had been long overdue. My phone was still in my hand, the weight of the evidence pressing. into my palm. Every stolen dollar, every shady transaction, every lie she thought she had concealed, I had it all, and now I just had to wait.